Next slide, text, Welcome to CVent, 2024 Community Conference Networking Application. Network with attendees through community boards and in-app messages, access the schedule, session materials, and resources. Explore speaker profiles and attendees, use the live Q&A functionality in each session, connect with conference partners, earn points and place on the game leaderboard, access recordings located under the Schedule on Demand. Under the Community tab, the Community Boards button highlights. On another presentation slide, a user's text and the live Q&A highlights. Office of Housing Counseling, Promoting Community, Driving Change. 2024 Community Conference. David Berenbaum, Deputy Assistant Secretary, Office Housing Counseling, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Julia Gordon, FHA Commissioner, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Lindsay Burns, ICF.
So without further ado, I will hand it over to David Berenbaum, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Office of Housing Counseling, and he will bring us all together for our conversation this morning. Thanks, David.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsay. And listen, I had my cup of coffee in hand. I am caffeinated, and I'm really looking forward to a great day of conference sessions. Everyone, keep in mind that right after this, our next session is going to be focused on some of the developments with regard to the recent National Association of Realtors settlement, as well as looking at some of HUD's great work in appraisal and also the settlement or the conciliation announced with HUD FHEO in that space. So I think everyone knows our special guest, Julia Gordon. She serves as the Assistant Secretary for Housing and the Federal Housing Commissioner at HUD. She is a strong advocate for hands-on practitioners to work to really achieve equal justice, fairness, and equity in housing, and is a strong supporter of consumer protections. Most of you know this is Julia's second appearance at our Housing Counseling Conference. And her background in consumer advocacy and housing finance gives her a really strong and unique perspective in her role. Julia, welcome.
David, Commissioner Gordon and ASL interpreter Krista appear in a split screen.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We can hear and see you. We're through all our technology glitches. It's wonderful. Julia,
That's
I know it's been a really busy and productive year for you. And the OHC team is just delighted to collaborate you on all of your initiatives. But I'd like to give you the opportunity to invite you just to share some of the developments that you're most energized by with the group to kick us off this morning.
Commissioner Gordon sits at a desk with a large bookshelf behind her.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for always including me in the work of the Office of Housing Counseling. I think a lot of people on the call already know this, but working on housing counseling is one of the most important things that I believe I do in my position here at HUD as the Assistant Secretary for Housing. It's very close to my heart as somebody who came into this industry as a consumer advocate with a background in legal aid prior to coming into the consumer finance space. And for the core work here at the Federal Housing Administration, there's really no greater resource than our network of housing counseling agencies and HUD certified housing counselors. So I'm really glad to be here. And we have had a very exciting year on so many fronts. And I know David's going to ask me some specific questions, but we have made significant policy advances in our single family FHA portfolio. I think most importantly, with adding the ability to consider positive rental history when underwriting people for their loans. We have also made some very meaningful upgrades to our loss mitigation waterfall that responds to today's interest rate environment. We've also had many exciting developments in the manufactured housing space, both in terms of modernizing the construction of the actual homes themselves, as well as updating financing products for manufactured housing. And, of course, in the Office of Housing Counseling itself, launching our home ownership grant program, launching the Let's Make Home the Goal campaign, and now modernizing our forms of engagement are all very exciting developments as well. So I'll just stop there and see what questions David has for me.
Well, thank you, Julia. And there's so much to really cover. Just last week, you were making a very important announcement with regard to manufactured housing and as well attending the committee's activities. In fact, you have stood up the Office of Manufactured Housing. Could you share a little bit about what you perceive as the opportunities, in particular for housing counselors, to recognize the importance of that type of housing as an affordable housing opportunity across the country?
Thanks for that question, because as we face the worst affordability challenges in the homeownership market that certainly I've ever seen in my career, we need to really expand the types of opportunities that we offer to households to get into homeownership. And I believe that manufactured housing is an important part of the solution to the housing affordability crisis. And I'll tell you why I'm bullish on housing counseling. I'm on manufactured housing, and why housing counselors should care about this. And the easiest way to say this is to crib from the old ad and say, this is not your grandfather's manufactured housing. Manufactured homes today have benefited from very significant technological advances in offsite construction that allow today's manufactured home to look extremely similar to a site-built home when they are affixed to a permanent foundation. And these homes, if I were to show you a slideshow of site-built homes side by side with some of the newer manufactured homes, honestly, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And I know that because I can't tell the difference. Homes have, open floor plans and ridge roof designs and modern finishings in the kitchens and in the bathrooms. And I have toured so many manufactured homes now that are so much nicer than my house. And many people do own the land under their homes. They're often able to title that home as real estate and obtain mortgage financing for it. For the percentage of people who buy manufactured homes but don't own the land under their home, we have now updated an FHA financing product for those personal property loans that people use in that instance. And I can tell you that for some of these newer models of manufactured home that really, are so very attractive, you can still get one of these for less than it costs to build the same home on site. And that's because factory building tends to be more efficient, and the mass production and the production line and the ability to just buy the different components in bulk, it really does save money, even if the home is made out of some of the same materials and features the same kind of appliances.
Renee R., interpreter's video feed appears. She listens in on the conversation as ASL interpreter Krista continues to sign.
We are now seeing the manufactured housing sector significantly advance in terms of energy efficiency and durability of the product, resilience in terms of wind events and the like. that in some cases does exceed what we are available to do in site-built homes at the same affordable price point.
Renee takes over signing as Krista disconnects her video feed.
And that can save people money in the future on their energy bills and on the need to rebuild if they experience any kind of natural disaster. So this is why I'm so excited about it and really invite the housing counseling community to learn more about manufactured housing, about how to counsel people through the process, how to distinguish between homes titled as real estate and homes titled as personal property. Just look forward to really continuing to build that capacity.
Terrific. And, there's been a lot of focused discussion on our boards for this conference. First, excitement about all of our activities in the Make the Home the Goal campaign. And also, there's an acknowledgement of the significant steps that FHA has taken, lowering the MIP rate, how student loans are being handled, even discussion to some extent about the new approach to perhaps to accessory units as a source of affordable housing. At the same time, many of our counselors are very focused on the loss MIT side, continuing to work with consumers to rebound from the pandemic. And I was just wondering if you could share some of your thoughts on both sides of that coin and how, your thoughts about moving forward with the housing counseling community.
Julia adjusts her position in her seat.
Well, thanks for asking about that. I love to talk about the work we are doing that I consider to be work that helps add to our housing supply, along with just, creating real wealth building opportunities for homeowners. And so having an accessory dwelling unit, either attached to your house or in the backyard, is something that allows homeowners to get a stream of rental income. We know from many, many decades of experience with people who buy 2 to 4 unit homes that oftentimes living in a multi-unit property and being able to rent out that other property really helps smooth the financial situation for people and does enable them to really build up that asset over time. Now, previously, FHA did not treat ADUs the same as we treat 2 to 4 unit properties. And that's something we've changed recently, so that if you have a client who wants to buy a home or refinance a home that has an ADU, or that wants to build an ADU or, renovate part of their home to make it an ADU, we are now permitting the rental income from that unit to be counted as part of the underwriting process in terms of income. And we've actually gone a little bit farther than anyone else has gone, even the GSEs on this, because not only will we count rental income from an existing tenant who has a lease, but we will even count a portion of potential income if what the homeowner wants to do is, create or fix up that ADU and then rent it out. And that really does boost purchasing power for the homeowner. And then it creates a new source of affordable housing in that neighborhood. So if you combine that with the changes we've made to our 203K renovation loan product, it's a really powerful combination. Recently, we rolled out very significant updates to the 203K renovation loan that we think will make it much more attractive both for lenders to offer and for home buyers to use if they're either purchasing a home that needs rehab, or if they're in a home and need to do a refi so that they can do some rehab. We know that almost half the housing stock in America is more than 50 years old. these homes need investment and they need some TLC. And what this renovation loan does is it allows you to borrow more than the current market value of the loan so that you have the ability to take that money to put toward the repairs and rehabilitation that you need to do. So I'll leave that topic there and move on to what David asked about loss mitigation. I think everybody is quite familiar with the many changes that HUD made during the course of the pandemic to streamline and improve loss mitigation options for borrowers facing financial hardship. But we started to run into a problem when the interest rates started to zoom up, because the sort of flagship loan modification, which reduces the term of your loan or increases the term of your loan and reduces the rate, we were no longer able to reduce that rate. And sometimes the rate had to even go up from where the homeowner was. And that prevented us from giving the payment relief to homeowners that we know is absolutely critical to the success of the loss mitigation efforts. And so we developed a brand new product that we've never tried before, where homeowners can use the partial claim, which is kind of almost like borrowing from yourself on your mortgage, to for a temporary 3-year period, essentially buy down those monthly payments to a place where the homeowner gets up to 25% reduction relief in their monthly mortgage payments. So for someone who is facing a reduction in employment hours, or who had an increase in expenses, maybe due to a divorce or a disability or something, this can provide this 3-year period of relief where that homeowner can either, recover the financial resources they had prior to the hardship, or figure out, what else their next steps might be. But we're really excited about rolling this out. And while it's not required to be offered by all servicers until the beginning of next year, some of the largest servicers have already rolled this out, and I hope you're hearing about it. It's called the Partial Claim Payment Supplement.
Julia, that announcement has been very well received by the housing counseling community. And I know that sometimes the counselors find themselves educating the mortgage servicers to FHA's announcement. And so we remind our community and our industry that they can engage with FHA and call the FHA Resource Center and let them know they're experiencing a problem. And I think that approach has worked very, very well.
Julia nods.
You and I have spoken extensively about the importance of aging in place, the growing number of seniors and elders who have not saved adequately for their retirement years, and the growing importance of HUD's home equity conversion mortgage product. We've also spoken about the importance of ensuring the quality of HECM counseling, and we've taken steps, in the Office of Housing Counseling to ensure that, including mandating the minimum time for sessions, also beginning to do in the near future mystery shopping of our agencies to ensure that quality. Everyone should know who's viewing that Julia herself has actually listened in to a HECM counseling session, which I must add was really well done. But moving forward, I think we need to take steps to further support our industry, as well as the reverse mortgage industry itself, to ensure best-in-class housing counseling. And I'm wondering about your thoughts about that. What can we be doing better as we move forward?
This is such an important issue, David, because we do expect, as we move into this, real increase in the number of seniors who are eligible for a HECM in our population at large, we're going to be seeing more people looking for ways to tap the equity in their home. And while there are many different fintech companies and other folks out there trying to get a piece of this market, we know that HUD's HECM program, HUD's own reverse mortgage program, is one of the more highly regulated or regulated at all programs. And it's a really important, safe option for seniors as long as they know what they're getting into. This issue is particularly important now as, well, I haven't seen any news yet today, but I assume we are entering into an environment where rates are going to be going down. And what that's going to mean is that reverse mortgage originators, along with all mortgage originators in the forward market, are going to be looking for opportunities to refinance people. Volumes have been down for so long. Originators are hungry for business. And in the reverse area, I think we're going to, as a whole team here, need to be very, very mindful of efforts to get seniors to refinance their HECM, which is sometimes a good idea based on needs, but oftentimes there are considerations beyond just the basic mortgage rate that it will be very, very important for seniors to consider. If they're looking at refinancing, they really need to know that the benefits to them, the financial benefits to them of refinancing do exceed the costs of refinancing, particularly, looking at what their length of stay in that house is planned to be. And so we're really going to be looking to the counseling community to help borrowers think through this issue, as well as sort of the basic knowledge of reverse mortgages that you already counsel for. And that, as David said, I've heard live myself what a good job you do at making sure people understand the basic product. But this is going to come into even more importance right now.
Absolutely. And it's a growing issue across our country, particularly for those of us who work with the unhoused or the homeless. We know that unfortunately in our nation, the fastest growing group of the unhoused are our senior populations at this time. Switching to rental, though, of course, everyone I think is aware that multifamily housing is another office within housing and part of Julia's portfolio of responsibilities. The rental assistance demonstration, or RAD, has been getting a lot of attention. What can you share about that? It's a very exciting initiative.
Well, what I can share about that is, this has to do with modernizing the nation's public housing stock, which sadly, due to a lack of public investment, in many places has really suffered from deferred maintenance and from many other problems that come when a housing authority is unable to have the resources to reinvest in those properties. And with an understanding that in today's political environment, for better or worse, that investment probably isn't coming into the public housing sector, we do have this ability to bring in the private sector to help take these properties that are not necessarily properties any of us would want to live in ourselves, and both rehabilitate them and make them nice properties and invest in them, but also to adjust rental levels to, match the market, et cetera. And so that's, the RAD program really does take our public housing stock and say, let's bring in a private partner, and we will keep this we still keep the property affordable, but now it's really a public-private partnership. And we have found enormous success with this, frankly, and have been able to rehab and therefore preserve really tens of thousands of units of housing around the country. And we are looking at, this program has continued to sort of expand around the edges with being able to tap different pots of money. And it is really something for renters to not fear. Yes, when you do a big rehab of a public housing development, there is often some temporary displacement because some of these properties just need the kind of investment that you can't stay in the unit while it's happening. But all of the units then remain affordable. So it's not like when a property just completely goes private and then the landlord can kind of do whatever they want and is trying to get, higher income tenants. This really does offer many people the opportunity to stay in an affordable, and by affordable, I mean in the technical sense, like, pegged to your income and what percentage of your income rent is taking up, but be in a home that is the kind of safe and decent housing all of us would want for our families.
Yeah. Julia, thank you. And I'm going to wrap with one final question for our coffee conversation this morning. And it has to do with HUD being an innovator, which in some ways some may say or think is an oxymoron, but actually there's so much innovation happening at HUD right now. Of course, our office, from our learnings in outreaching to consumers during the pandemic, I shared with our audience yesterday in my opening remarks that we're about to start a new demonstration that we're calling the Pathway to Homeownership, where we're going to outreach to HUD consumers, tenants in our own programs, to explore if they're ready for homeownership through connecting them to HUD-approved housing counseling organizations. And there's so many ways to do that, with the FHA loan product, with down payment assistance, with special purpose mortgage programs, and so on. But I'm also excited equally by the opportunities of the Choice Voucher Program, and we have a session on that during the conference, and the step that your office, your team, Sarah and others in single family just took with regard to rental history being including in FHA underwriting. Could you speak to that? Because that was a very significant step forward, I think, for underwriting.
David adjusts his glasses.
No, absolutely. And I mentioned that earlier, and I know we're running out of time. So I'll just briefly echo everything David just said. We're very excited about all these department-wide linkages that we're building here. And in terms of actually becoming a homeowner through FHA's single family program, something we've talked about for years is, underwriting has always depended a lot on credit scores. And we know those credit scores build in years of racial and other kinds of discrimination and aren't always the best indicator of what the capacity of borrowers are. And we also know that for the most part, of course, there are exceptions, paying your rent on time doesn't always get reflected in your credit score. So what we've done is we've built in kind of a separate pathway through our total scorecard, which, as you know, is the underwriting engine for FHA loans, so that we can use positive rental history as a plus factor. And what we know from early evaluations that we've done since we rolled this out is that thousands of people have already attained home ownership who would probably have previously been kicked out by the system. So it's working, and we're really excited about it.
Julia, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us this morning. And I'll turn it back to Lindsay now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks.
The video conference participants disappear as an upcoming session slide appears with Lindsay Burns in the upper right corner. Text, session time, 12 to 1 p.m. EDT. Session name, The Changing Real Estate Landscape. 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. EDT, Adapting to Change, How the Homeownership Industry is Evolving. 3 to 4 p.m. EDT, The Intersection of Financial Education and Housing Counseling. 3 to 4 p.m. EDT, Counseling Strategies for Housing Choice Voucher Homeownership Program Clients. 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. EDT, Balancing the Professional Demands of Housing Counselors.
Thank you. This was a wonderful way to start off our day today and get you excited for our upcoming sessions. Appreciate your time, Commissioner Gordon and David. Just so you all know, we have a few sessions coming up today. Our next one starting at noon on the changing real estate landscape, where we'll be talking about the NAR settlement with some esteemed panelists. We'll also talk about at 1:30 how the home ownership initiative industry is evolving in the Home Ownership Initiative Grant. From 3 to 4, we have 2 concurrent sessions, the intersection of financial education and housing counseling and counseling strategies for Housing Choice Voucher Homeownership Program clients. And at 4:30, we'll be closing out with a really, really informative session on balancing the professional demands of housing counselors. So thank you all again for your time this morning. We look forward to your engagement the rest of today in our live sessions and on CVent. And you can find us on our HUD Exchange conference page after the conference. We'll see you later again. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Text, thanks for attending. Visit the 2024 conference webpage. Find us on the HUD Exchange Housing Counseling page. Email us at housing.counseling@hud.gov. Subscribe to Housing Counseling Today blog. U.S. Department of Housing Development and Urban Development. Disclaimer, this material is based upon work supported in whole or part by Federal Award No. C-22-TAVA-0011 awarded to ICF by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The substance and findings of the work are dedicated to the public. Neither the United States government nor any of its employees makes any warranty, express or implied, or assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, or usefulness of any information, apparatus, product, or process discussed or represents that its use would not infringe privately owned rights. Reference herein to any individuals, agencies, companies, products, process, services, service by trade name, trademark, manufacturer, or otherwise does not constitute or imply an endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by the authors, contributors, the U.S. government or any agency thereof. Opinions contained herein are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official position of, or a position that is endorsed by HUD or any federal agency.